Ladies and gentlemen, I'm feeling a bit dizzy. I need to give a shout out to the people on YouTube. You guys, this weekend, we will have a 36-hour stream. 36-hour stream where you can pay in subs to make me change suit. You can wake me up while I'm sleeping. You can do all kind of fucked up shit. And we're going to be watching every single best of 5 and best of 3 that is going to be happening this weekend. What do we have this weekend? We have the LCK. We have the LCK lower bracket finals. We have the LCK finals. We have the LCS finals and the lower bracket finals. C9 waiting for FlyQuest versus Golden Guardians. This Golden Guardian is going to make the run and qualify to MSI. We will see Licorice against Zeus. The only place to find out is my stream. Of course, you can watch it elsewhere. But the only place it will be broadcasted is my stream, except all the other places that it's broadcasted in. So make sure to tune in. On top of that, we have the beginning. The LEC. The best of 3s are starting finally. I don't know what kind of smoke LEC is on, but I'm going to tell you, I was also, really put between a rock and a hard place when I qualified to the World Championship, and then we had to play the LEC finals, and then we didn't win the LEC finals. We got third place, so it meant we had to play play-ins, and then playing play-ins, we had like a solid week and a half to prepare for play-ins. Different patch, no break after a grueling, masochist run. I don't know if that's the appropriate use of masochist, but painful run. It was tough. But that's the problem with the future. Let's focus on the LEC BO3s for now. We have the matchup ahead of us. Astralis versus Fnatic is the second matchup of the day. Vitality versus Mad Lions. BDS versus SK and G2 versus Koi. These 4 teams are in separate groups. Win 2 BO3s, go all the way to the BO5s. Lose 2 BO3s, and you're out, and you're forgotten. Forever. Well, not forever. There's a summer split coming, but temporarily, you'll be forgotten. What has happened during this time? We played 13.4 the last time we saw the LEC. We now have 2 patches. So LEC is going to be the first one on 13.6. Before we jump into 13.6, and I just give you guys a small rundown of the patch notes that I believe are going to be impactful. 13.5, what changed in 13.5? Well, Jinx got buffed, something that we saw a couple of times, a couple of games we saw Jinx, picked into sometimes Aphelios, Jinx has been showing up, something that was picked, of course, in situations where even before the buffs it was picked sometimes for the specialists, think maybe Reckless, picked it. Azir is completely deleted off the planet. Sometimes when they write adjusted, this is the deleted of the planet bracket. So Azir is deleted of the planet. Something that stood out in general, something that has shown up more and more is, of course, the cannon. The cannon buff is massive. I think there's going to be 1, 2, 3, very high prio. We have some cannon enjoyers in Europe. And then LeBlanc, the reason I put Ari and Lissandra next to them is, of course, because they are kind of in relation to LeBlanc showing up. I don't know if we have players that have the balls and the guts to play LeBlanc top, but I think LeBlanc top is severely underrated, and I think it's something that can be played. I put Annie in here as well because Annie somehow didn't get nerfed. Annie didn't get nerfed. It's like in terms of the changes, they're very limited, right? On 13.5. Xayah still high prio, the nerfs didn't change much. Caitlyn nerfs were quite extensive. It was not something that a lot of teams were playing anyway, right? Maybe if we look at Crowny and Upset, maybe this is a nerf that can impact them. But then looking at 13.6, these are buffs that help the likes of Caitlyn. These are the buffs that help Jinx and Aphelios because they are targeting exactly the items that have been very powerful for the mainstay AD carries. BT has been nerfed. Little Tempo has been nerfed. Navori Quickblades has been nerfed, right? And these are direct nerfs to, of course, Zeri, Xayah, maybe Sivir, but Sivir has a little bit more flexibility. Sure, you can go IE on Zeri, but I think it's a little bit worse, right? You can go IE on Sivir, but I think it's a little bit worse. Who are the main benefactors of this is just Caitlyn, Jinx, and of course Aphelios. These are champions that didn't mind going in different directions on their keystone as well, right? A lot of people are going to ask out there, yo, is Yuumi a problem? Right? Is Yuumi a problem? No. Disabled. Disabled. Okay? Out. Yuumi out. Vega gets nerfed here, and Vega is something that showed up on 13.5, and I think it was already buffed on 13.4, so it was already strong. This is not the Giga Vega nerf. Okay? So this is the nerf of Veigar when they basically reduce the damage of his W, the base damage, and they reduce his armor and his base HP just a tad bit. I believe 2 armor lost and a little bit of HP down. So this is not Veigar getting deleted off the planet, because I think on the next patch he definitely gets deleted off the planet. Yeah? So Veigar's still active, still very good, still pickable. An additional layer to this, of course, is the nerf to Dragon. Nerf to Dragon is, 10%, whatever. I don't think this is big enough to change what the current meta is, A lot of fights around the Drake and so forth. I don't think this is big enough to be like, yo, let's turn this ship around and ignore Drakes. Still, the idea of Chemtech, the idea of Cloud, the Drakes individually don't give you that much stats, so we might see a situation where teams are looking to trade into topside a little more heavier because of the top laners we have currently in the league, right? You think Chasey, you think Photon, you think potentially Adam, maybe there's some room to do some trades. BT nerf is pretty big. BT nerf, of course, is something that makes poke champions better. Because BT kind of nullified the idea of poke. So this is definitely something that a champion like Jace definitely welcomes, right? Galio buffs, I think in the context of Europe, I don't think we will see much Galio. Galio is not something that anyone of the mid laners really enjoyed playing. Because the reason I wanted to point this out is because we have junglers that like to play Kindred. So if there's any room for that, maybe you can extend into it. There's been some experimentation with the new Nashor's Tooth. I think if you think about champions that are benefited by the changes, where they shift a little bit of gold into, of course, cooldown, right? Then you can point that to maybe Varus. He likes this change. Gwen potentially likes this change. Maybe Nashor's Tooth is going to make those champions show up. But if we look at the individual roles, Nar Jace, Cannon, big standout. It's like if it's boldened here, I think it's just straight up OP. Jax, Oliver, Renekton, Camille, Darius, Garand, Adam Specials, Sanke, Sante, Malphite, Gragas, Cho'Gath, Gwen, LeBlanc, Rumble. I put LeBlanc, Rumble here is because I think they could be good in very niche spots, especially if you have someone that is willing to play AD mids, right, and maybe Jace angles and so forth. But LeBlanc top is something that I think has the potential to do some damage, just because the answers into LeBlanc mid are very, very heavily indexed into something, right? You think of Lissandra, you think of maybe Vex. These are some of the answers that people like to pick into LB. And these are champions that can easily be countered. So you can be flexible here. Maybe you can send LeBlanc into Cannon, LeBlanc into Nar, and then maybe you could play the game, right? Malphite, if we think of Cannon and the answers into Cannon, people like to play Jace. No, these are not rankings. These are just me putting them in categories. These are not rankings at all. These are just categories for my own brain. Maybe they don't make sense to you, but this is how it makes sense to me. These are just categories. At the bottom, you have champions that probably won't be C-play, but I would like consider them, for the interests. To put a little, dabble of basil in your sauce. Okay. So Cannon, in terms of answers to Cannon, you can think of Jace. Maybe people play Jarvan top. Maybe people are going to play Malphite. These are the things that stand out the most. But I think Cannon is definitely very strong, right? The key thing about Cannon is that you can't really answer with Malphite on blue side 1, 2, 3, and it's something that can be banned because enemy can Silas on 3 in a lot of cases, right? You don't want to play against a Silas with a damn Malphite ult. That shit would suck balls. Yeah, that shit would just suck balls. Okay. Jungle is quite boring. I didn't mention here on 13.5, but we did have a bunch of jungle system changes, right? You don't no longer, the champions, the camps no longer have this 20% damage reduction against junglers of the opposing team, right? So that is out of the picture, which might tell us that we might see more Viego, we might see more Jarvan, strategies that are revolving around invading the enemy camps and leveraging level 2, level 3, right? And that could be, decent. I think that Elise, Viego, right? These are champions that like to be active level 2, 3, 4, and they can definitely leverage this, right? Kindred is a champion also that plays with the same line of thinking. I definitely think that Kindred is a champion that can be played. I'm still surprised that we don't see Trundle. It's like, when you have these top lane tank Andes, it's like, especially in LCS playoffs, it's like, oh, Sion 1, 2, 3. Sion 1, 2, 3. Seju, Sion, Veigar 1, 2, 3. Why is nobody just slamming Trundle to win the game on the spot? You completely nullify the strength of Sion, and he actually has some decent jungle matchups. And Trundle is a champion that I believe that we could see as an answer into some specific things, because he can leverage his strength a lot easier. I think that the main benefactor of this type of a playstyle is Astralis, because they've tried to achieve this and did it successfully on 13.4, right? So that shit is cool. Kindred, I think Kindred has potential, but it comes down to do you have the teammates that are willing to play the good shit for you, right? The Galio, the Zax, because I think these type of champions that can support the Kindred are very, very good. Mid lane, Annie. Annie, are you okay? Annie is not okay. I think Annie should be permabanned. Annie is very strong. Annie is very strong. Why is she strong? Currently, mid lane meta is all about supporting your team and being strong. It's like, you need a champion that is strong level 3, level 2, level 4, level 5, level 6. Why level 6? Because first Drake. Why level 3? Because your jungle is going to be there level 3. Why level 7? Why level 8? Oh, Rift Herald is spawning. Oh, why level 9? Oh, the Drake is spawning, the second Drake. Oh, you need to be strong, you need to be strong, you need to be strong. That's why we see very little of the mages, right? The mages are like, oh, I'm 2 core, yeah, I'm okay, oh, okay. It's like, who fucking cares? Who fucking cares about you? An additional layer of it, right, is Road of Ages. It's like some of the champions that are building Road of Ages, and they are happy to build Road of Ages, are very happy in the current meta, because Road of Ages is a very fast item, which might sound counterintuitive, because in your mind you might think to yourself, oh, Road of Ages, you get that level up late game. No one gives a shit. No one gives a shit about this aspect of it, okay? No one gives a shit about this aspect. The main thing is, Catalyst is OP, you finish a very cheap item, you have big bulky stats, and that is going to help you in Drake fights. You are not the target that can get one-shotted, you have decent damage. This is the whole purpose of Road of Ages. Catalyst into cheap items, boom, enjoy yourself, right? Another layer is Ari, LeBlanc, Lissandra, Veigar. Veigar is like one of the mages that is an outlier, right? Cassio can be used as an answer into a lot of the melees. I think that she can lane into a lot of the harder matchups too, due to the nature of, Catalyst. Orianna, I think, is the mage that is still good. Like, if you're going in the mage direction, Orianna Victor is probably where you're going to land. You think of Larsen, you think of course, our boy Humanoid. Orianna into Annie is something that can be very good. And if you have the room to pressure and to play and be heavily oriented around your lane matchup, that is good. But the issue with the mages is that they are constantly put in confrontations within the game, and that is where they are weaker than a lot of other mid laners, right? Sylas Akalion, these are also very good skirmishing champs, right? OMG has success because the meta is very skirmish heavy around objectives, right? And even if you limp into a fight with these champions, you don't have prio. I think these are champions that are very happy. Irelia is of course the outlier for Astralis. Jace, I think, is very, very strong. I think that, for example, in the Astralis versus Fnatic matchup, I can see a world where like they steal a win off of a Jace composition with an AP jungle and they enjoy themselves. I think Jace is super, super strong. I think Twisted Fate is a juicer. Just because of the aspect of Cannon, right? Cannon here, it's like TF, once again, same line of thinking, right? Road of Ages enjoyer. TF has good itemization, good scaling, and is good against some of the champions that could be OP on the current meta, right? So that's why I think Twisted Fate has the potential to be very strong, and we have some strong TF players in Europe. Nautilus is something that showed up. A lot of players have been playing Nautilus with Road of Ages. Maybe it's something that can be played. We shall see. Like, I've tried it myself. Nautilus seems to be able to, like, you can play this shit almost anywhere. You have strong skirmishing power, right? Follows the line of thinking of what I mentioned before. Veigar is still a turbo pick. I don't think that the nerfs on 13.6 are big enough. Definitely the 13.7 Veigar nerfs are rough. Corki mid, no. Corki mid, if Azir is not in the picture, then Corki is not going to be in the picture either. Azir is deleted, Aurelion Sol is kind of deleted too. Bot lane, Draven, Turbo, Xayah, Zeri, Kai'Sa, Sivir. I put them in their own category here because they are the ones that are impacted by the nerfs to Navori and of course Lethal Tempo. I can't judge how extensive they are, but I just wanted to highlight them anyway. I can admit that I don't know exactly how extensive they are. Aphelios, I think Aphelios, very happy, you know, he can play Conqueror. He has some, you know, room for build optimization. You know, I think he's very happy with all of the changes. It's like Lethal Tempo nerf. Lethal Navori quick blade nerf. The BT change might hurt Aphelios a little bit, right? Because he kind of liked the BT a couple of games. But all in all, yeah. This is the school of champions that don't play Navori. But in the end, I don't want to over-index on this nerf because maybe it just doesn't matter at all and people play exactly the same. I'll be very surprised if teams all of a sudden stop playing Xayah because of this change. No fucking way. I still think Xayah might just be first picked in a lot of cases, right? Support, I think, is all business as usual, right? Hamidinga, Lulu, Annie, Soraka, Zillion, Ashe, Lux, Nami. These are for the combos. I should add here that Lucian is still really fucking strong. Really fucking strong. Support, Heimerdinger, Lulu, Annie, Soraka, Zillion, Ashe, Lux, Nami. These are the combos. Rakan, Thresh, Nautilus, Blitzcrank, Leona, Rel, Renata, Brom. I really highlight the Blitzcrank here because if you give Blitzcrank angles to the enemy team where Blitzcrank has a good lane phase, I think that Blitzcrank is disturbingly strong if he can lane. Very, very dangerous champion. I think that each team that are looking to blind pick champions that are weak against Blitzcrank, like let's say you're playing a trash lane and the enemy has a circumstance where they can slam Blitzcrank, it might just be game losing. Very dangerous. Okay, that brings us to the matchups. Mad Lions versus Team Vitality. All in all, I think looking at Mad Lions as why they were a second place team in winter, I think that is what creates the most interesting conversation. I think they had a very strong 3v3 around mid. Right? Very strong 3v3 around mid. It was Hilly, it was Elioya, they were fighting around Niski, and of course, we had a circumstance where Niski got ahead and they were dominating games. They were a very scrappy team, and I think that you have a situation where they are strong players in scrappy situations. I think that in general, the winter split was a lot more scrappier and people were a lot worse on setups and there was a lot more room for mistakes. And I think that the baseline of the league has gotten better in spring. And I think that in that conversation, Mad Lions has been a little bit left behind. I think they had solid setup around objective and good team fighting when they were ahead. They had a good understanding of tempo. When I say good understanding of tempo is that, they hovered into one side and map trades and they based and they covered into the bottom side and they managed to find picks and advantages through that. I think another big deal here was that they were ahead of the curve in terms of meta. They watched the T1 series and they picked up Gragas in the span of a day, right? That was very, very good. The Gragas Vi combo definitely produced a lot of wins for them. And this was something that people underestimated. Very good in scrappy games, right? What made them struggle? Weak understanding of the meta, loss of confidence after split. Of course, this is very vague, right? And loss of confidence after the split is something that is very vague. For me, the way I see it is that they are overplaying situations because they are chasing easier wins. Sometimes I see them fight bad numbers, they overreach into areas that is very bad and they overplay their hand. and they try to really squeeze too much out of opportunities that appear. And I think this is, to me, some level of loss of confidence, right? Obviously, I'm just piecing together whatever information I have, and this is only speculation, right? They put themselves in bad bot lane matchups. They put themselves in very bad bot lane matchups. The read on bot lane is kind of a limbo. I don't know if they are trying to go in the direction of playing comfort, and in that they find themselves in bad matchups. Their meta read was quite atrocious in the BO1s. The biggest benefit for teams like Mad Lions and even Vitality and also Koi, the teams that have done the worst on the previous patch and walking into now 13.6 and additionally having 2 weeks to prepare, allows them a lot of breathing room to reassess. Vitality as a team, you know, the main concerns for me when I think of Vitality in the context of their title contention is I don't think that they have a good level of accuracy in the later stages of the game. You look at G2 as a team, you know, that's the main title contender, right? You look at G2 as a team, they are very accurate, very good. You can really see the benefit of them never FFing their scrim games, right? I think later stage macro, I think that this is where Vitality, if they're playing a best of 5 against the likes of G2, this can be concerning. In the regular split, I think mid lane champion pool choices was very strange. We had the blind pick Lissandra, blind pick Aurelion Sol. I think that Perks wasn't really sure what he wanted to play or what he did want to play. And then I think that Vitality really didn't recognize their own strength. I think that they were playing these scaling drafts. And I think that Bo as a player needs to be the one pointing the gun. Vitality is by far the most mechanically talented team in the league. Upset, Bo, Photon, they are the mechanically best players in their position. So you need to put them in situations where they can actively press this advantage over the enemy team. Perks definitely needs to step up, but I think it comes from his decisions in terms of what champions he plays. And I think that he needs to see his role as the facilitator in this team and pick champions accordingly to that. I want to see him on the Annie, you know, I want to see him on the facilitators. I think this is where he's going to be the strongest, right? We could also see Perks LeBlanc. I would like to see Perks Galio, Perks Lissandra in the right angles when it's an answer into the enemy team. And that's it. In the context of the matchup, Vitality versus Mad, I think that this is a horrific matchup for Mad Lions. Horrific matchup for Mad Lions because I don't think Mad Lions can press... I don't think that they can press their strengths even on the best day against the likes of Vitality. I think Mad Lions are very scrappy, but I think Vitality are super good in scrappy situations. I think that... in the current alteration of Mad Lions, they don't seem to be that comfortable in being in losing positions, and they tend to be very impatient in their play, and I think that Vitality is the type of team that can react very accordingly. I think that Mad Lions isn't the right team to press Vitality where it hurts. Could be a circumstance, right? If I try to imagine the situation where Mad Lions win against the likes of Vitality, I think it's because of 3v3 mids and very, very strong meta read, right? And Hilly and Elioya, they have very, very high peaks, and I think that's where they go to live and die, because I think that they can create a solid direction for what Mad Lions want to do. I think around the 3v3 mid, that's where there's some potential. But Photon against Chasey. I think Photon has every advantage over Chasey. I think Chasey is a strong laner. I don't think that he converts his advantages as well as Photon does. Photon is just a complete player right now. And being worse than Photon is not something to be, you know, embarrassed by. I just think that, yeah, Photon is definitely the man when it comes to the top lane. I think that the main type of identity that I would like to see for Mad Lions is if they recreate this idea of Elioya, like finding bot lanes where they have prio and that Hilly can connect with Elioya and then proceed to press into the enemy jungle. That could be a version. But finding winning bot lane matchups against Upset is very tough. Very tough. But I have Vitality winning this one. I think that Mad Lions could have a resurgence, but I think they start off in a matchup against Vitality, and that's probably the toughest one against them. You know? So that's where I'm at. Fnatic versus Astralis. Another bangaroo. Vitality had so little time to do scrim before the split. I feel like they should benefit a lot from the break week. Yeah, I think anyone can, right? That's the thing. Anyone can. So putting that part in it is kind of, you know, iffy, right? But I think that Photon and Upset, they are weapons in the exact right areas where I don't think that Mad Lions can work their way around that, you know? Fnatic versus Astralis. Fnatic success on melee supports, so basically start with the bot lane. Fnatic success on melee supports, none on ranged. So they had some lane phases where they did well, but I think Advien's team fighting is very poor. Very, very poor. If I was working with Advien, I would really, really hammer down the idea of what his role is in team fights. You need to really, really take a step back. So as a player, right, sometimes not pulling the trigger is the best thing that you can do, right? You need to understand what you need to use your spells for, and you need to understand where you find the most value. And this is important. And I feel like Advien sometimes on the Nautilus is over-engaging. Braum, he's over-posturing, and he is having this trigger finger when he wants to use the buttons that he has on the first target that appears. And this is a problem, right? And it's also visible when he's playing those ranged champions. I think when you play the Nautilus, everything is streamlined, right? And Fnatic had success on the Nautilus and the Rakan and so forth. But I think Advien's team fighting has been very poor. As a whole, I think that Fnatic's bot lane, if they can survive through the early game, they've been like sufficient. But I think that the main spotlight in this team is of course on Humanoid, Razork and Oscarini, right? They have been the biggest driving forces in their victories, in my opinion. What could be potential angles for them? Sivir Jinx angles, that could be something, right? Sivir into maybe Zeri. Their Zeri play didn't look that great, right? Xayah out, Reckless out. That's a question that I have in the back of my mind. Is Xayah out? Is that going to put Reckless at such a disadvantage in the lane matchup that he's going to be in trouble, right? That is concerning to me, right? Advien, Rakan, Nautilus, Braum, that's where he's comfortable. But beyond that, if you compare them to Astralis, they have stronger blinds, stronger counters, better and even lanes. They have played the Varos, they played the Blitzcranks, they played the Melees, they played the ranged. I think Astralis bot lane have a massive edge here. And the main question, right? The main question will be, right? How will they create circumstances where they have as simple of a bot lane matchup as possible to not create volatility against Astralis' bot lane? The thing is, this is something that teams have failed to do in spring, in winter too. Astralis are very good at creating volatility bot side, and that is their comfort zone. Last time they played, the Blitzcrank and the Xayah massacred them, completely cut them apart. Right? That was the Blitzcrank angle into the trash. right? I mentioned Blitzcrank before. This is something that you cannot allow. You need to be very careful of this. Astralis' bot lane, very favored in this matchup. Jungle. 113 has had a fantastic split. Honestly, if we only isolate the 9 games, if you only isolate the 9 games of Spring, I think 113 can be in the conversation of one of the best performing junglers. If you only isolate, right, these 9 games, I think 113 has been fantastic. I think he deserves credit. Very, very good, right? Of course, it doesn't help that Eliolia looked quite bad. Bo looked quite bad. Yike was on and off, right? Because G2 had some losses, but Yike had some great Vi games, right? Just 113 has had a fantastic split. If someone told me, yo, Yamato, I think 113 had the best performance in the jungle position in Spring, I would say, I think that's fair. If we only isolate the BO1s. And I keep hammering the same point, isolating the BO1s, because it's BO1s after all, right? And Astralis had many, many angles where they had such a draft gap because the enemy team didn't understand what Astralis are. Either they over-index on the fact that they plain and simple, they're like, oh, leader plays melees, I'm gonna blind pick Lissandra. Or they completely ignored it by blind picking Jace Heimerdinger on blue side to invite Irelia angles, right? So there is definitely an element of that. I think that if you prepare against Astralis in a BO3, you can look more carefully on what they are and what their strengths are. And you can cater yourself and prepare yourself better, right? These southpaw fighters, you know, these fighters that are very unorthodox, like Astralis, right? It's much easier to prepare against them in BO3 scenarios. But it's a double-edged sword. It also gives Astralis time to find more ways to be awkward, right? So something that I want to say is I don't think Razork deals well. I don't want to isolate Razork here. I think that in general, Fnatic, if Razork is forced to be the defensive player, I think that this is not great for Fnatic. You know? I don't want to blame Razork only, but I think if Razork needs to be the defensive player and he's the weaker champ, and he needs to be defending the dives and playing a very, very low econ game to survive to a point where it will be rewarding to play, I think that this is something that Fnatic will struggle with. Viego is a favorite for both, and I think Razork has very high highs. I think Razork on his good games in Spring, I think that he did really, really well, right? I just think that the changes to jungle is a massive benefit for a player like 113. Mid lane, I think this is where Humanoid can create an edge. Leader is very exotic, and I think that he can definitely leverage his information that he has over others very well. But I think Humanoid is probably the worst matchup in the league against Leader. Humanoid doesn't have tolerance for bullshit. He understands lane phase super well. He understands all of these fringe champions. When it comes to laning, Humanoid is fantastic. And I think this is very, very good. Because some of these champions that Leader likes to play, like he blind picked the Zed, right? These are not that consistent, right? Not that's either you scare the shit out of your opponent, or and you leverage that, or you play against someone that is very experienced and very, very good at laning. And I think this is where Humanoid can do some serious damage. I can see Humanoid play LeBlanc. I could see Humanoid play TF. I can see Humanoid play Silas. We just have to wait and see what kind of a Humanoid we will get to see on the day, right? And this could be a situation where maybe Leader and Astralis find the right 4-5 bans to blind pick for Leader, right? An additional layer to this, right, is that Leader is very good at playing together with 113 and Yonghoon. And I think this is where, of course, you have a circumstance where 3v3 is a very important notion. I think that when Fnatic were put in 3v3, 4v3, like 4v4 situations around mid lane, that shit was kind of wonky, you know? I think just Humanoid is the best mid laner to put up against leader, I feel, in the league. Better than Caps. Better than Caps. But Fnatic is weaker in the idea of playing around 3v3 mid. And Younghoon and, of course, 113 can be more effective in impacting the mid. You know? Top lane. Jax is key. I believe this champion will get banned. I think that if you look at Fnatic, you should ban Jax. It opens Kled into Olaf. And I think this opens up the pool of Finn. Who plays Cannon and Cannon counters? That's going to be a question that we ask all top laners, right? That's just a question we ask all top laners. Finn and Oscarinin, they are very feast of famine players from what we've seen so far. And I think that this shit can get crazy real quick. So we might have games that are just decided through top lane all alone due to the volatility that both of these players could potentially bring and some of the matchups that they like to invite. We just have to see how Cannon plays out, and that's going to be interesting. Team themes. I want to say that rhymes, but it doesn't really rhyme. It just kind of works together. Fnatic are imprecise even in wins, even though they had massive improvements. Did not play games on stage, which could mean nothing, but it's important to bring up as a point. Well, some Cannon counters, you can play like Malphite into it, Jarvan, maybe Jace. Some people like to play Gnar into it, right? Fnatic, a lot of their wins came from... A lot of their wins came from complete draft gaps. And I don't think it's completely unlikely that they find themselves in draft gap situations against the like of Astralis. I think that's not entirely crazy to believe. I could see them doing like some kind of Jace draft. I can see a situation where they counter pick mid and they get kind of a good draft. And I think these are things to point out. I think this is where Fnatic could potentially win, where Astralis are running in their own potential source. I think a lot of the Fnatic wins come from the fact that they had massive, massive draft gaps. And I think that's important to highlight. And there could be a situation where that continues. Definitely. Inexperienced best of three, Oscarini, Nightshare, you know, was something to point out, right? Astralis have been strong at converting winning positions and looking for mistakes that will bring them back. You know, this is where things get iffy, right? Even in the last matchup, you know, Fnatic were very far ahead, but then they opened through mid and there was impatience. Advien and Razork don't recognize the role in the game and they get caught and they die. And this is something that Fnatic did in most of their wins. Their win against G2 was sloppy, but they had a fantastic draft that allowed them to make those mistakes, right? Their wins aren't super clean. And I think that's important to point out. I feel like Astralis are capable of going through the ringer within a game, right? Red side focus. I think both teams should prefer red side. When I think of Fnatic, I think they should find ways to pick top lane, support, and ADC 1, 2, 3. Very important. I think they should drop jungle and 5 pick mid. Just make sure that you counter pick mid. I think this is crucial. 5 pick mid will invite some draft edges. I think that's something that is worth to explore. If they are red side, they also need to consider, right? It's like, I don't know if they're going to ban Xayah or answer into Xayah, right? Because most likely Astralis is going to look to first pick Xayah and then they're going to play the game. And then you have to choose, are you blind picking support or are you blind picking mid? But I think it's easy to blind pick support maybe on like 1-2 to then set up a case where you 5 pick mid and instead you move on. Astralis do get side select, right? And I think Fnatic, either they're going to prepare something against first pick Xayah. The issue, if they ban Xayah, then they need to think about banning Varus. And then if they ban Varus, like then they're left with no bans. And then it's like, what do you really gain on bottom side? Right? And then you maybe play a Jinx game. That could be something, right? But Varus is also still very dangerous. Astralis is a very, very good Varus team. Strong blind pick supports and securing Oscarini's favorites can give edge. Once again, I think blue side, Astralis should look to ban Jax. All in all, I probably think out of the matchups that we have here, Astralis versus Fnatic is the closest one. This is the closest one. Keep in mind that Ashe also got buffed on 13.7, right? And also a big reason of sorry, not 13.7. I mean Milio. I think Milio is a champion that definitely helps Ashe, because I think Milio and Ashe is a very strong combo. So I believe, you know, I believe that there is maybe some inflation there. Like Milio Ashe is monster OP, in my opinion. But I think if I look at these matchups, I believe that Astralis Fnatic is good. Milio is disabled. I'm just answering the point someone made about me missing Ashe ADC. I believe I did mention her. I think Ashe ADC is perfectly fine. Some Qmax angles, but we shall see. Yeah. But all in all, I think this is going to be a very close matchup. I think it's honestly, it will come down to the draft, as I would like to just. I believe it will come down to draft. And the main question for me will be, what will leader first pick? Like, what will leader blind pick? And how will Fnatic's bot lane figure out ways to pick? But if I have to, you know, choose a team to win, I would have to go with Astralis. Due to, I think the jungle change is beneficial for 1-1-3. I believe that their bot lane is so strong. If Fnatic can secure bottom side, and I believe Oscarini and Finn, I think that's quite an even matchup. And I think it will come down to, can they secure bot enough for Humanoid to have the freedom to potentially punish one of the leader blind picks, you know? And I can see a world where Fnatic, they get like a Maokai draft coming in with the J, something very easy and streamlined, and they pick up a win. I can see that happening, you know. There's room for opportunity. I think the biggest difference maker, why I want to point, like why I feel Astralis is going to be favored, is just the bot lane. You forgot that Human is going to gap leader. You haven't been listening, my friend. I think it's good for me to ignore chat. BDS versus SK. So the trickiest thing for SK is that their strength, the biggest strength, has been their bottom side. But I feel like BDS's biggest strength is their bottom side too. And I think that plain and simple, BDS, their bot lane is just looking better by every metric. I think they're looking better by every metric. And I think, you know, Zeri Draven out. What does SK have? Aphelios priority should be up. I think that's interesting. You know, Aphelios. Maybe we see some Aphelios action. But once again, it comes down to the same thing. It's like you pick Aphelios, you have to play with Thresh, and then you invite Blitzcrank. Like, you need to maneuver yourself around a lot of things. And I think BDS's bot lane has a lot more depth. I think that they can definitely be, you know, in terms of DOS's performance, it's like that shit to be. DOS has had not that great of a performance in spring, in my opinion. How does SK win a couple of their games, right? They had some late game comebacks. They had some decent coordination in their team fights. They had some good 2v2 mid, 3v3 mid, and I think that's where they got a lot of their victories, but they've been on a massive lose streak. Massive lose streak. The issue here is that SK's bot lane, in contrast to BDS's bot lane, it's like even the last time they faced off against each other, they were very far behind. DOS was dying over and over again, and then BDS kind of threw the game in the later parts. Has Exakick played Aphelios? He has played Aphelios, but in the past. Like, he's a great Aphelios. At jungle, I think Markoon has been wildly inconsistent, but I feel like Markoon's condition seems to always be determined by the team's condition. Because I think Markoon has very, very high highs, but low lows. I don't know if it's him being affected by the team or if it's him, affecting the team, Either way, Markoon has very, very high highs and he's been very wildly inconsistent. Can he find form again with jungle changes? Elise and pressure boards. I think Shio has done very well this split. I think Shio has done much better than he did the previous split, and I don't see him as a Wukong OTP, right? I think mid lane is very uninteresting. Very uninteresting to me. I think this is the chance to make it interesting, These are the type of series that can make a career, if mid laners take the chance to really stand up. If I look at both of them, right? They were both like... BDS was a heavy Azir enjoyer, right? Heavy Azir enjoyer. Also some Azir here, but who can blame them? Azir looked pretty OP, right? After what comes after that, it's the Akalis, it's the Silases. I think that SK definitely had some decent games where they played like Talia Vi, they played some 2v2 mids, and all that good stuff. That was in, I believe, the first week when they went 3-0. Okay, imagine SK went 3-0. SK went 3-0, 1-2, and then they went 0-3. That's crazy. Crazy. I believe that was their scoreline. Maybe I'm wrong. Another layer of this, right, is do these teams want to play Annie or do they want to play Veigar, right? Are they going to play LeBlanc? These are the questions. I think in terms of the matchup, I feel like Certus and Nuclear, they are not deserving on the same spotlight as players like Caps, Humanoid, Leader currently, right? They are not bringing that flair, and they've often been passengers of their conditions, right? I think that they just have stronger actors in their team that decide everything. And I think that their job is to find ways to connect in what is going on in the game. That's why I think TF is going to be very interesting. Are they going to play TF? I'll be some TF and fucking slam an Annie and play for your team, Adam has an edge, isolated, I think, in terms of what he does. I think he draws bans and has answers into the relevant classics like Jack, Sion, and Nar. I think biggest strength is SK's bot lane, but it's also BDS's strength, and BDS bot lane is just better right now. Bigger depth and better early play. SK is at the mercy of BDS late game improvements, Dragon setups, and Nashor setups. If that is an angle, right? SK have this kind of late game armor that they've relied on, and they've managed to beat out Vitality in previous splits due to having this late game armor. I think this is where things can get very interesting. I think BDS will consistently get advantages early. Will they be able to convert that consistently in the matchups? Usually, if that is my rationale for a BO5 or a BO3, I have to lean towards the team that has the early game edge and can, put themselves in the driver's seat, and they are the ones that need to convert. How they do Nashors and how they do Dragon setups, this is where BDS need to find precision. And if you missed it, you can check out the voice of Yamato with the BDS homies. I think that BDS can consistently get leads through bottom side. I think Shio has played a lot more precise. And I think that SK is at the mercy of BDS's late game improvements. Because then again, SK has been very sharp in some of the late game positions. And I think the first initial matchup that they played, that game that they played, where SK beat BDS, I think that's a good story to follow. G2 versus Koi. G2 versus Koi, this is the matchup that I wrote the least amount of information on. It's like looking at their solo queue accounts. It's like Faker Slayer is playing some Javan, some Papushka, Tristana. Looking at playing some AD mids, right? This could maybe point to Owner Slayer wanting to play Nidalee, wanting to play Lilia. Could be something, right? Zeus Slayer is playing his cannons and his Jaces and the Orns, And all in all, nothing too crazy, right? Koi, We have the mall fight preparation into the cannon. We have some Maokai angles for Malrangovic. A Twisted Fate tickle here for Larson, which is nice. A little cannon. All in all, nothing that really stands out. It's like Koi really has lost her thunder. In essence, I think the biggest issue is, I think Larson has never been good, in my opinion, playing the facilitator. I think that he is good at utilizing positive attention, right? When I say positive attention, is using jungle attention and support attention to gain advantages and then build leads. Malrang as well, the uniqueness of his playstyle has become a vanity. I think that in the context of what, there are certain beats that you need to hit and you need to reach a certain level of efficiency in the game to actively play the game. So when I say beats, Rift Herald timer, Drake timer, second Drake timer, these are beats that you need to hit. Like coming into the Drake, the first Drake, you must have based and you want to be edging into level 5, right? When Rift Herald is coming up, you want to be level 6, right? Coming into the second Drake, you want to be in a position where you finished your first, your mythic, when it's maybe your Divine Sunderer, or Wukong, or it's a Goredrinker on Lee Sin. These are certain beats that you need to hit that really shifts the power of all of the junglers that people are playing. And these are beats that Malrang misses due to his inefficiencies. And in the past, his inefficiencies created advantages in mid and bot, and I think that that definitely created a circumstance where they were strong enough laners to leverage that into not giving a damn about Malrang's condition, but they haven't had that level of performance. Larson struggles to play the facilitator, to connect with his teammates and be the facilitator and the Annie and so forth. And I think that the big thing for me is, if Koi is going to make a resurgence, we have to assume that Shigenda has some kind of Smurf account, right? This is only 60 games played. I just pulled this off of Lolesports, right? So don't overestimate. It's like here, it's like 60 games, it's whatever, right? They probably have hidden accounts, whatever. Point being, Koi, at mercy of the performance of the bot lane. Can their bot lane have a resurgence? Can they find themselves on the new patch in some shape or form? I feel like in order for those things to go right for Koi, I feel like I have to have too much hopium in order to get there. That's my issue, right? I think too many things need to go right in order for Koi to be strong here. G2, on the other hand, so what can I say about G2, right? For the rest of the bracket, I think G2, what you can look at is just Broken Blade, will he become a liability against the likes of Photon? I think that's like the main thing, right? Will BB be a liability when it comes to the later stages, right? I feel like G2 is clever enough to understand that BB is struggling in the lane phase department, and this is something that they can mend through 1v1s, through sheer force of practice and refining. That is something that is very low-hanging fruit in terms of what you can work on. And I think that's something that is solvable. I think that's something that can be solved through effort. And yeah, I think the best version of G2 is the one that plays heavy through bottom side and then leverage support and jungle to make everything else function, and then let BB and Caps be as funky as possible, right? I think that Hansama should never play Zeri, so the thought of playing these range shitty supports like Lulu doesn't even cross the mind of Mickey. I think that pressure through bottom side converts support advantage into everything else. That's why Mickey is the strongest support in Europe, right? He's so good at converting advantages and also creating 2v2 advantages. Mickey spreads his pressure very, very well, right? And I think G2 by far should be the favorite to win it all. Should be the favorite to win it all. Before we move on to the tier list, I just want to highlight a very interesting circumstance. In terms of the groups that have been set up, I think that this is a group definitely that Mad Lions can get through. And if they get into top 4, odds are they qualify for MSI. There was an interesting discussion that Thorin and I Will Dominate had regarding to the seeding. I feel if the number 1 seed, which in this case is BDS, could choose which group they go into, that would be, you know, interesting in my mind. I think that was cool. I think that Group A is very contentious. I think that Group A is rather even. But while I think on the red side here, BDS and G2 are kind of favored. You know? I think that BDS and G2 are very favored here and they have some easy matchups on their hand. Right? While Group A can be very contentious and there could be a place where Mad Lions go through. I don't think people should be completely surprised if Vitality beat Mad and then let's say Astralis beats Fnatic and then Vitality beats the winner of that and then Mad Lions does the lower bracket run. I think that could happen. I just think in this circumstance here that Mad Lions rolled into their horror matchup. Of course, the G2 matchup is the horror matchup for everybody. But I just wanted to highlight that one fact that if Mad Lions, you know, if there's a circumstance where they get into top 4, odds are they go to MSI. And we might have Golden Guardians against Mad Lions playing on the big stage. Could be fun. Could be fun. The LEC tier list. So, I pulled it up. Look at that. I remove you guys the flashbang. Let's call them number 1 contender. Potential contenders. Stars align. No way, Jose. And then we don't need this this one. Okay. So this is a bit impromptu. So the team to beat is G2. They're the number 1 contender. So we need to create the circumstance. Change font color. Bro. Who fucking cares if I can change font color? Do you think I made the site? Change font color. So we need to imagine a circumstance where G2 is defeated by this certain team. Okay? So I believe even in a circumstance, right? Let's say Vitality bomb out and they have the exact same split as they did previous splits. Right? That could happen. But in terms of the individual prowess, right? And in the individual skill department, this is where they can, like, it means that they have the potential to challenge them. I think individually, Photon, Bow, Upset are very strong players. I think Perks is a mid laner that is capable. And I think that in terms of the potential, the Vitality roster, even though they had some shitty BO1s, I still think it's there. I think you don't discount this team just yet. So I would put Vitality as a potential contender. This is the team that should be the scariest for G2. Photon against BB. And a bot lane that can fight back. That is a recipe for success. Even in the match G2 versus Vitality, that was a very competitive game. But I think Vitality is a potential contender. Who comes next? Team Heretics. No, I'm kidding. XL Esports. Did you see Vid coach being fired? Mephisto was not working with the main roster in that capacity. He was no longer the head coach, so I don't think you can view it as Vitality coach getting fired. They probably did some. They probably moved on in a mutual way. Change text color. Oh man, that's bait. Stars align. I believe Fnatic stars align. I put Fnatic in the stars align because what are the stars that need to align? Okay, so the stars that need to align is that Oscarinian's performance keeps improving and he finds his element and all of a sudden he becomes an absolute legend, right? Humanoid, the meta. Okay, I'll just do this, guys. We just go back, you get flashbang, then you get to read the text, okay? There you go. Welcome. Stars align. Stars align means like, yo, it's like really the stars align. It's like, it's tricky. It's like Reckless needs to... Okay, this is better, no? I think that Humanoid has the capacity to be good. I think that Fnatic, you know, in terms of their AD carry pool, is the stars align. It's like, I'm fucking grasping at straws here. I feel like it's a no way Jose, you know? Okay, I think the best move is for me to ignore chat because you guys are all very smart. I put down chat. So Vitality I've talked about, G2 I've talked about. I think Fnatic, I don't know. There could be a situation if they figure out a way to make bot be balanced and they can play through the strengths of humanoids and Razork rules a 9 instead of 3, then that could be fine, you know? I think BDS, they have a strong enough bottom lane player and Adam has shown strong enough performances to be potential contenders. I think probably Astralis is the one that is the most awkward in order to find potential wins. Like, this is a weird way of making a tier list. It's a very weird way of making a tier list. It's like, who has the highest chances of beating G2 in the best of 5? That's pretty much what this is, okay? This is who has the highest chances of beating G2 in the best of 5. That's all. And I think that's it. Then we just add a little tier list in there just to make it clickbaity as fuck. And that's it. All right, I believe we covered it all. Finally, you know, to just summarize the predictions. So we believe Astralis is going to beat Fnatic. And then we believe Vitality is going to beat Mad, BDS is going to beat SK, G2 is going to beat Koi. And that's it. That's it. Now's your chance to ask questions, guys. Don't you think that Oscarini only performs off stage? Could be. Yeah, could be. I have a question. Then ask the question, Vedius. I have a question, he says. How's your day? My day was good. Predict an upset, please. Why? I can predict that an upset will happen, but it's counterintuitive for me to... It's like, yeah, I'm going to go against my own logic here and predict an upset just because, haha. Who do you think is going to MSI? It's gonna get wonky. How do we steal Faker's keyboard? Or we call some of my homies. I think that they will provide him with a new keyboard. They're not gonna load into game. It's like, yeah, you don't have a keyboard, so you guys have to play without one. And I think probably stealing the mouse is better than stealing the keyboard, by the way. Because it's lighter, and usually they're wireless, and it's easy to just steal the mouse. No, stealing the mouse is by far the most optimal strategy, guys. You guys don't know shit. What is the most likely upset? I think Fnatic versus Astralis. Fnatic beating Astralis would be an upset win. And I think that could happen. I think SK didn't look good to me at all. Are you saying it's the biggest upset, SK beating BDS? Or that is the most likely upset? You think BDS are frauds? Okay. PU1 merchants. Could be. Definitely BDS could throw a couple of games. Should G2 sandbag this split to prepare for MSI? They can just prepare for MSI by playing stage matches. How does it help you prepare for MSI by running it down? Let's not practice for LEC to be better at MSI. Fly to Korea now. Yeah, let's fly to Korea when all of these LCK teams are on break already. They're finishing LCK this weekend. Let's fucking fly out to Korea, baby. Thing is, even if they sandbag and they run it down, it's like they're gonna have to stay here to week 5 anyway. They just missed the final weekend. And then they're gonna get jet lag for what reason? Which analyst is the most fraudulent? Analysis based on results. Bro, I don't... Can you throw your co-workers under the bus? First and foremost, I didn't even think about them like that, you know? So I don't listen, and like, if I can think to myself, this guy's a fraud, I put him on the list. Oh, I just got a friend request from Spearshot. What the fuck is that? Oh, that's smart. Spearshot has his Twitch message as as Spearshot has added you to his friend list. That's pretty smart. Who's the biggest fraud in chat? Woo. Do you think burnout is more real with this LEC format? Yeah, definitely. For sure it is. But you also learn a lot about yourself. Okay, I think we covered it all, guys. I'm gonna go celebrate Easter. I think we covered it all. This was a beautiful one. This was a lot of fun. Maybe I do a little game. Let me see what's going on in the house. Yeah, we'll be uploading on YouTube, Vidias. Vidias, are we doing the end of the split rundown again? It was so much fun the last time. Let's do it, and let's talk MSI. I'm inviting you in front of all of these people. Haven't watched much LPL LCK yet. Yeah, we have time. We have time, my friend. We have 3 weeks of time. Do you will much EU muscles? Maybe. Ladies and gentlemen, if I want to notify you guys, if there is a situation where you guys are leaving the stream now, I just wanted to notify you guys that this weekend I'll do a 36-hour stream. Yeah, I would like to humbly invite you. What are you going to co-stream tomorrow, LCK or LPL? We'll prioritize LCK and then go into LPL.